Sidechaining gates is hands down one of my favorite creative features that you can do. It's so much fun and it's so easy to create really interesting melodies really quickly. So stick around, we're going to be talking all about this. Before I do, if you want some free music production resources, go check out that free downloads link below. Here I've got this trigger. It's just a drum loop that I've named trigger. It sounds like this. And then I've got this bass line, which is just like a respace. Right? So the beauty of sidechaining gates is that I can extract the rhythm from this and impose it into this. So this track has no rhythm and just a tone. And this one has not really any melodic tone, but it just has rhythm, right? So it's a drum loop. So what I'm going to do is actually go grab a gate device, gate here. And what this thing is doing is it's stopping the audio unless it's getting triggered to open. And we can cause this gate to be triggered to open and close by a different input. And that's what the sidechain feature is doing. So if I turn on the sidechain and get the audio from the trigger, you'll see that now the gate will be opening and closing according to the peaks of where this trigger is hitting. So that'll be in the rhythm of the drum loop. So it just makes this process really, really creative and fun. So I can just go in here and sort of play with these notes a little bit. If you have seen me do this before, I've done this before on the channel. So I do apologize if you have seen this before, but it's definitely worth having a full video on this thing because it's so easy to do and creative and fun as well. So maybe something like this. Why this is so powerful is I can actually just change the sound of this, the MIDI material. So I've got an auto filter before the gate and I can just sort of sweep this around and it's going to make it evolving over time. Right, so that's pretty cool, but it definitely doesn't stop there. There's so much more you can do with this. And once we have this set up, right, so this is the trigger, and whatever audio is in this track is triggering the rhythm of this track. I can just get any drum loop, any audio material, and the rhythm of the peaks of that audio material is just going to trigger a rhythm in this track. It's super simple and just creates so many interesting effects straight away, instantly. So you want to try and look for a loop that has a nice bit of syncopation and groove to it. So I've got another loop here and I've just thrown it on this track and it just automatically starts triggering the rhythm of this. Got another one here. It's just really easy to generate these ideas. Right now we're just changing the trigger, but we can also do the exact same thing with the thing that it's affecting. So if I was to make an audio track this time and just drag this gate that's already being sidechained onto this audio track, then I can just grab any sort of audio and just throw that in there. And now the audio is going to be triggered in the rhythm of this thing. So for example, I've got this pad here. And then you could sort of pick out little bits that you like. So and so you can see as the pad changes underneath it, it evolves over time as well. So maybe you could add some reverb or delay after this and see how that goes. And so it's really easy to change both the trigger and the audio material and just keep experimenting. Just throw samples in there, throw presets in there and tweak around. And it very instantly creates some really interesting effects that are also unique as well. All right, so I want to make this as practical as possible. And I've got this little drum loop here. It's like a house loop. Let's just delete this a little bit and have a listen. And I just found this other drum loop that has a nice bit of syncopation and groove in it. It's like a tom loop. And I've just set up the same thing. So a gate over here that's being triggered from this thing over here. And I've just turned off this trigger loop, so it's not actually playing. It's just going to trigger the rhythm of this track. So I've got this sort of string here as well. I'm just going to drag this in and have a listen. I think I want to warp it a little bit. I think I want to also just transpose this down to semitones. Yeah, right, yeah. So it sort of matches this one. And let's just maybe sort of chop this up a bit and sort of play with the levels so it sort of matches a bit more. And then we had this trigger, remember? So all I gotta do is just engage this gate, just turn it on. Gives it a really nice rhythm that's very usable and very groovy as well. I want to show you how you can do the exact same thing throughout your track, and it's going to make the groove feel kind of cohesive here. So I've got this bass patch here, and I've just used this operator to create a square wave bass line. And I'm just going to make a note, maybe like this. Have a listen. And once I turn on this gate, so it's in the same rhythm as this, right? I think this is kind of a cool vibe. So remember, we can always do chord progressions with this. I just needed to change the notes around in this MIDI clip here. Maybe I'll put this one down, put this one back up, and sort of just go up the scale a bit. So something like this. And then this last note here, go to something like this. I think it'd be cool to do a little octave jump here as well. So let's have a listen to this. So it's a very immediate technique. It's quite experimental, but it's also very fun and musical as well. So before we were using drum loops, but sidechaining gates is also a great way of layering as well. So I've got this stab here. And instead of turning off the trigger like we did last time, I've got this other audio. It's another stab here in key with it as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this gate to layer this stab. So we can do this with anything. I've just used two sort of synths, but you could do it with white noise, you could do it with textures, you could do it with any sort of warped sample or effect or anything. So there's so much potential to this, but I'm just going to show you the basics of this so you can experiment with it yourself. So I've got this gate here. I'm going to get the sidechain input from this stab here. And so now, whenever this stab plays, this thing will play as well. And when this stops, so will this. So you can hear how this layer is cutting off when it stops. If I was to chop this shorter, it would do the same thing. And this just gives us a lot of potential of what we can do with this. Where this becomes interesting is I can actually just like warp this sample. I could go in here and warp it and drag it out like this. Maybe I could change the parameters of the envelope here. Maybe I could put some reverb on this layer here. Maybe if I could even put some processing like erosion on this as well. So let's have a listen to that. If I wanted the gate to actually sidechain the reverb as well, you'd have to put the reverb, instead of having it on ascend here, you'd have to put it on the track before the gate. So let's just put the gate after the reverb here. And then maybe I could put this one into the reverb. It's just a really good way of creating some interesting effects. So I could even warp this a little bit more and just move it around and see what different effects it has. So it has different sort of tones wherever I move it. I could even do something like this, where you delay it a bit and then it becomes more of a rhythmic thing. Isn't that cool? You could actually chop this up and see how this affects the stab here. Isn't that cool? If I turn this back on now, ooh. I'm really surprising myself with how cool this sounds right now. So I hope you can see how much potential these gates have in creating really instantaneous and very usable results. So this has been one of my favorite techniques for this very particular reason. It just makes things feel unique. It makes things feel like you. I'm really just scratching the surface here. And if you want to dive deep into the world of how far this thing goes, I have another video that I've done in the past that was all about how far I could push the gate device. So I dive more into how you can create interesting randomized transitions within drum loops using gates, and randomizing effects processing as well. So there's some really interesting concepts in there. If you're interested, I'll link it at the top for you as well. So I hope this has opened your eyes to the world of how powerful this creative feature is. If you've enjoyed the video today, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.